Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DeFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, HighLift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Hello, welcome to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DeFrancesco, and I'm honored again to have my guest, Frank Phillips, here. Frank, again, has 35 years in collision industry, everywhere from starting as an estimator, worked his whole way up with Caliber, was with Rivian, and he's now with ADAS. And I think, ADAS is such an integral part of the operating systems of the vehicles, and we talked a little bit about in our previous episode just how now cars are being able to, they're not the same car that you buy. And I want to talk a lot about some of the complexities. And I think a lot of misnomers that shop owners have about calibration, how it should be done, what is their responsibility, what should they farm out, those type of things. So Frank, I know you're going to be able to illustrate all these things. So thanks again for being on Your Business, Your Life.
No, thanks again for the invite, Matt. Appreciate it. As we said, I think on our last episode, we can talk about industry for 30 minutes or 3 hours or 3 days. We kind of got to pick the calendar, right?
Exactly.
So definitely. And the passion piece of it is so important and the reason why, I guess, at the end of the day. So yeah, ADAS is near and dear as it's become stronger and stronger, an important piece of the safety of all vehicles. I mean, I think our conversation around ADAS is important beyond just the technical process of calibrating, but understanding where and how it might fit into your business operation and what makes the most sense. And I'd love to have this conversation with you for sure.
No, that's great. And I think, it's actually interesting. So when I first started diving into the collision industry and started really focusing on that niche, calibration was a huge topic. And one of the things that was going around was that every shop owner needs to open a calibration center. I really kind of drank the Kool-Aid at first, but then I started looking into not only just the upfront investment, but what's really required to do it. And I think now we look at, a couple of years later, even ADAS and calibration has changed. And I'm not always sure that it might be the best investment for every shop. I want you to kind of touch on what's involved with ADAS, what's involved with calibration, and when should a shop owner consider putting calibration in, and when should he say, no, it makes more sense from a business standpoint to farm that out?
Yeah, no, Matt, and it varies, right? It's really very tailored to the business operation and the size of business or what your intentions are with your business. But first and foremost, the number one thing that any collision repairer needs to assess is their facility. What I mean by that is factoring in what your cost per square foot is and what your production per square foot is. Because when you start talking about calibration and the space that's required to do it per the manufacturer requirements, that's really going to be an impact in your model, in your operation. I mean, the average body shop in the US is 5,000 square feet, somewhere in there between 5 and 10. I mean, 10 is pretty big on the average side of things. While I was at Rivian, was probably in over 2,000 body shops around the country as we were looking for certified locations. And the average shop is, it's not a lot of space. No. And when you start thinking about calibrations, and let's use Rivian for example, their standard footprint for calibration on an electric delivery van, the Amazon van that they produce, is 40 by 60 feet. That's 2,400 square feet. What? If your body shop is 5,000 square feet, are you able to give up half of it to perform a calibration that could take 2 or 3 hours sometimes?
Yep.
That's the assessment that you have to make as a business owner, somebody who's working on your business versus working in your business. You really, truly have to look at that and determine how much money can I make in that 2 to 3 hours on that 2,400 square feet with the expert that I have as a body tech or a painter or whatever it is, right? Whatever process that we're working through versus carving out that space and bringing in a calibration expert. Because I don't have one. So now that's an additional cost that I'm going to have to factor in is who's now going to become my calibration expert? Do I have somebody on staff I can teach and train? Is it going to be me? I don't have capacity. Am I going to have to hire somebody? What am I going to have to pay that guy? All of those just very fundamental, simple decisions have to be considered even before you start looking at equipment, because we didn't talk about equipment. $250,000 investment to turnkey on a calibration center if you're going to be able to do all brands, all makes, all models, and deliver 100% of what might come through your door. All right, guess what? If I spend $25,000 on a wire feed welder, let's say, let's even spend $50,000 on a 3-torch welder. None of them are that expensive. Let's just say they are.
Yeah.
How many years do I get out of that 3-torch welder? At least 10.
Right.
And if I got 50,000 in that, that's a $5,000 amortization, right?
Right.
I can do pretty easy math there. Guess how long ADAS equipment lasts? If you've
Oh,
been in the ADAS business for more than 3 years, you've already bought your equipment twice.
wow. Let's see.
Yeah, buddy, right? It's
Mm.
a whole different perspective when you start thinking about what you're going to do and the longevity in which you're going to be able to do it. It's just like your cell phone, it's just like your computer. That's the biggest investment that you have. The frame holding the targets is the least thing, but
Mhm.
you got all the technology that goes behind that to be able to scan the cars properly, access the right modules. Are you using OEM software when you have to? Do you have a vendor that you have to tap into to partner with to get to OE software when you can't do it? Manufacturers are going more and more to locking you out of those modules. And we can talk more in detail on that from a definition perspective. When ADAS first kind of hit the streets and it got popular, it
Yeah.
was all considered to be a convenience feature, right? That's how it's defined. When you get into the manufacturing side of things, as long as that system can be turned on and off, it's defined as a convenience feature. Me as the consumer can choose if I want to use it or not use it. Well, up jumps the devil. And now we have legislation that says, hey, we need to have automatic braking in every single car by 2029. Guess what? That system can no longer be turned off. It is no longer a convenience feature. It is now a safety feature, a complete different definition. The manufacturer is going to put different safety requirements behind that, different limitations that allows you to access that. And now you as a calibration business is going to have to be prepared to deal with that. If
Right.
you're a repairer and you're fixing cars, can you bolt that into your business, or does that make more sense to go down the same path as you do for accounting? Most body shop owners hire an accountant to make sure their books are taken care of, right?
Yes.
Does it make sense to hire a calibration company to make sure that liability is addressed for you as well?
Right.
You got to do the assessment.
Definitely. Oh, and that's so true. And it was interesting. I remember, and this was, like I said, it was, I think the first collision conference I went to, it was during COVID. It was 2020. It was a Northeast conference, and it was like, it was dead. Like they moved it because they usually run it in March. I think they moved it to May. And I mean, nobody was there. It was a bunch of vendors and me kind of wandering. I was talking to different vendors, but there was a couple of these vendors that were selling calibration equipment, and they were showing it to me like, oh, talk to your customers about this. It's this little unit, and they set this up, and look, as long as you got a young kid that can operate an iPad. And I'm thinking, well, it seems a little more complex than that. I mean, can you speak to some of the, bill of goods maybe that some vendors are pushing out? And really, if you're going to do it right, what do you need?
Yeah, 100%, Matt. There are a number of folks out there selling equipment that can do it. I mean, gosh, I remember that one of the very first places companies I went to that was doing some initial calibration, some diagnostics work in my days at Abra. They talked about literally going online and finding a copy of a Honda Target that was the size of a piece of paper that you could trick the system into believing that it was the right size by changing the positioning of it. So basically, you move the target until the car said okay.
Wow.
That's the standard, right? It's not different with some of the companies that brought some of this product to line first, this aftermarket piece. Do we use aftermarket in our business? We absolutely do. There's places for it. We do proper vetting. We ensure that it meets the standards. Do we have full access to OEM information? Absolutely, we do. Do we have access to OEM software when it's required? Absolutely, we do. All of those things need to be factored and evaluated and determined. You just can't jump in and buy yourself a little. I got some silly pictures I use in a lot of presentations. Somebody took a transmission jack stand and attached a target to it And I got a picture in the shop, literally, of this transmission jack
Wow.
holding the target, Subaru target, as a matter of fact, and thinking with blue masking tape, kind of taped over the black and white squares that the target is, designed for and what the
Yeah,
camera's actually looking for.
right. Oh
Do you
my
think that
gosh.
car got calibrated properly?
Nope, nope. I don't think so. I don't think so. Oh my gosh. Can you believe that?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty crazy some of the things that you see and that have happened. And granted, it's a bit of a pioneering factor, right? You're at the tip of the spear, you're the first ones, you're innovative, you're trying to figure it out, you understand that it's coming, what's available for you out there to understand. Manufacturers didn't do a good job of really providing information. It ramped quicker than they thought from a repairability need and
Right.
not having that data out there. So there's shared responsibility here that I think that all of us own, but we've now come well past that. Calibration's been going on, well, standard, right, across most makes and models since 2014, some element of calibration necessary.
Right.
You take a model year 22 or newer, and I assure you, if you've done something to that car, the manufacturer triggers a calibration requirement. Absolutely. You're not going to be able to fix a minor bumper scratch. You're not going to be able to fix a mirror. You're not going to be able to replace a windshield. All of those once were very small elements of repair now build into a much bigger, substantial process that includes ADAS calibration and diagnostics. And it's just what it is. And that's 22. So we're
Yeah.
already 3 years past 22 on model years. It's
Isn't
only
that,
going up, right?
isn't that something? Yeah, exactly. I see some of like one of the windshield replacement services that says that they offer calibration with the installation of that. And again, when they're coming on site, I'm always a little skeptical about that. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I will tell you, if you watch those commercials early and you saw that they said they included calibrations, if you watch those commercials today, Matt, they've taken the language out.
Are they?
They've figured out that the liability is too great of a risk and it isn't the right thing to do. So kudos to the company that has made that determination. There's still a lot of guys driving around in vans, pulling targets out of the back of those vans, calibrating cars out in the parking lot, right over the top of drains, inside body shops. Where's the, think about in your mind, the body shops you've been in, Matt, where's generally the most accessible space in a body shop? It's in front of the paint booths, right?
Right, right,
Most systems on a car that need calibrated are sonar. They base that they're on sound, right? So
right.
it's a radar, sonar, something that's requiring a sound or some sort of a sensor in that capacity.
Correct.
Well, let's put our trahedral in front of a great big metal paint booth
Yeah.
and expect that radar to focus its, into this little tiny 3-inch circle on this trahedral, the sound that it's looking for to ensure that it's calibrated right when this humongous metal paint booth is sitting directly behind it.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that car calibrated right?
No,
I
no.
don't want to take the chance. I'm not going to, maybe the answer is probably maybe,
Okay,
but
right.
maybe isn't going to help you in court. If
That's
somebody dies in that car or gets seriously injured and you're standing in court, that's when it gets serious, right? I mean, we
correct.
talked about it on the last episode. There's only one way to fix the car, and it's the right way.
That's
You've
right.
got to follow those procedures. Manufacturers have gotten so much better about it. There's lots of different dynamic things that you can do with cars now as well to help with the calibration process. But the reality is the shops collectively as an industry are still dependent upon a dash light. We've moved away from a dash light a little bit now to looking for DTCs.
Okay.
And we think that a DTC is required in order to force a calibration. It's not true. That lots of systems don't trigger a diagnostic trouble code that require a calibration. The system isn't smart enough to know that it's not pointed right.
Right.
It only knows it's working or not working. And the DTC triggers when it's not working.
Yeah.
It can still be working. The camera can be working, functioning, and doing everything that it is programmed to do and looking the wrong direction.
Wow.
It
Yeah.
doesn't know that it's doing that, right? It knows it's working. So
Yeah.
that's the other obstacle that we run into in the space that we're in, is that talking with customers and trying to understand it. And a lot of that comes from bill payers and the pushback on, tell me why this has to be done. And Now I have to go get some OE information and take the time. It's always about time, right?
Yep, yep.
We talked about it. Slow down to go fast. If I do that up front, document all that stuff up front, I have a much better chance of being able to do the work on the backside at a pace that we can all manage versus Friday at 4:30 and the customer's already on their way, right?
That's right. Yes, exactly. So question for you, shop owner, you've got a guy, a shop owner wants to repair cars right. Like you said, he's maybe got 5 to 10,000 square feet of space, really doesn't have the space to be able to put a calibration area in. What should that shop owner be doing?
You know, first off, get yourself educated on what's required because the definition of calibration is broad and there's a lot of different things that are required along the way of calibration. A simple Toyota radar, it doesn't require a tremendous amount of space. It can be done in some stalls and it truly effectively can. The tooling is not as sophisticated as having a humongous targeting frame that's digital and has to be in a particular environment. Do you have clear space? Do you have no metal in the way? Do you have space for this tetrahedral? Do you have a scan tool that is subscribed or has access to getting to the ADAS modules on the car? All those questions. Now you can say, okay, I can do this much of the ones in my shop, right? What's my partnership from there? Do I hire somebody who comes in site? If they come on site and I have space because they invested in the equipment, and that space has been certified and inspected to meet the OEM standard, that's an option as well too. If you have to say no to any of those questions, well, then you got to look for a vendor, right? You have to look for that accountant that's able to do this job, who's certified and licensed and has the proper tooling. But just because they stop by your shop and maybe give you some donuts and give you a notepad or whatever the case may be, I say that because that's what we do, doesn't necessarily mean you're getting somebody who's going to do it right.
Right.
You as the business owner, do your due diligence, go to their location, check them out, observe what they're doing, have them show you the procedures that they're using to follow. Are they just simply using the procedures that are embedded within their tool, their calibration tool that they purchased? Or are they validating those procedures against what the manufacturer publishes as required procedures? Because they're different. It's not the same. And so are they making sure that what they're doing per their calibration equipment aligns with what the manufacturer says that they need to do as well?
Yeah,
That's what I suggest to a shop owner. That's how you protect your liability. That's how you ensure that you choose a partner who can go to court with you in the event that it comes to that and can stand there and provide the information that's necessary to say, we fixed the car the right way.
right. Yeah, exactly. What type of specialized training do technicians need to be able to do calibration that would be outside of what they learn within just, the actual collision industry?
Sure. Sure. It's been interesting because it's taken education a bit to catch up. And I wouldn't say that we're really caught up yet, but I will give iCar credit. They have developed some really nice ADAS courses that have launched within the last year or so. They put together some great foundational classes that somebody who's just coming into the space can take and really get a good fundamental foundation for what's required. But honestly, I'm going to tell you, it is tried and true OJT. You got to get in it to do it. You have to spend the time with somebody who has been through the trials and tribulations and discovered the challenges of it's something unplugged or it's a cut wire or it's a whatever the case may be, right? The circumstance, because it's a tremendous amount of research, digging, and determination to solve a problem.
Right.
That's the basic fundamental skill that's required to be a successful calibration tech. Now, look, if everything's perfect and all I got to do is place the target, that's golden, right? That's an easy thing. Push a few buttons, place the target, measure it, do the things that the manufacturer tells me I need to do, and hit calibrate. I get a successful calibration and everything's golden, good to go.
Right.
I will tell you that happens about 2 to 3 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
7 or 8 times we're having to do some additional diagnostics and evaluation on the car to figure out what wasn't repaired right.
Okay.
Or what wasn't completely repaired in most cases. And usually it's something that didn't get plugged in or they missed a crushed wire or something that was damaged in the collision to start with. And so that's what I would tell you as somebody who's looking to get into the space. Education is key. Good fundamental stuff. A seasoned collision tech can transition into this if they have a good aptitude for diagnostics and scans and scanning tools and computers, that kind of thing. You gotta want to do the digital thing, right? It's
Right,
because
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
not hammering and dollying things when it comes to calibration.
You're right, right. Oh, there's no doubt about that. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about
Yeah.
that. And I think again, this kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier with again educating customers. I think customers need to know how calibration fits in with all of this because again, and this is what sometimes can drive up the cost, and maybe insurance companies don't always understand that. So I think,
Yeah.
again, gets back to the education portion of it.
Yeah, all the way around, right? I mean, I think you said it very, very well on our last episode that we did, Matt, when you mentioned what is a professional, and a professional is someone who's always learning, right?
Yes.
If you keep that in the back of your mind, if you're that skilled person in this equation, you always need to be learning. We learn every single day. My guys are literally out in the shop right now working on a Subaru. That's yesterday we did a Subaru and we had no troubles with it. Here we are. This Subaru doesn't, it's somebody stood on their leg the wrong direction or something. And so now we got to get into diagnostics and figure out there isn't anything apparent to be off with it. So now we got to dig in. Now
Right.
it's research. Now it's troubleshooting and all of those things. That's the big difference, I think, with ADAS that the industry has a harder time getting their head around. When you look at a wrecked car and you're just talking about physical damage to the vehicle, you can see it. It's
Yeah.
visual. You can see the dent in the fender, right? You can see the paint rubbed off of the bumper. You can see the broken headlight. When it comes to ADAS components and the technology, sorry, man, you can't see those lasers and those radars and any of that stuff that they're omitting.
Right.
You have to imagine it, right? It comes back to your video game days almost if you were a gamer. That's
Right.
what you kind of have to get the frame of mind around. And that's not always everybody. Body techs are inherently artful
Hmm.
and calibration is typically technical.
Yeah.
And so requires a process. The very first body shop I ever worked at, an older one-man band. He owned his own shop for years. It was
Yeah.
just one dude and he did it all. And then during my interview, he said, Frank, all's fair in love and body work. That was his message, right? And
That's
so
right.
that's how he believed. As an old school technician, he can fix anything.
Right.
Can, but it doesn't mean you should. And when it comes to calibration, anybody can calibrate, but it doesn't mean that you should. So
Well,
that's the
exactly.
that's the factor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like your computer. I mean, we're driving computers basically on wheels anymore. And I mean, how many of us actually understand how how a computer works? I mean, I don't. When something's going wrong, I gotta bring in an IT person that can evaluate and do the diagnostic. And I think it's the same thing in the collision industry.
It absolutely is. And that's where we're moving. We need to move faster than we are, is that specialization. You
Yeah.
got to realize, right? I'm old. When I was a kid, I went to the same doctor for all my problems, right?
Yeah.
If your elbow hurt or if you had a sore throat or a bellyache, the same dude is who you went to and he fixed you up, right?
Right. Right.
Guess what? Now when my knee hurts, I don't go to the same guy that I go to for my sore throat, right? So
That's
it's a
right.
different guy. It's
Yeah.
not different in what we do. Specialization has got to come. You have to understand where your strengths are. Spend your time working in your strengths, and you're going to become much more wealthy.
Dan Sullivan talks about that. 10x is easier than 2x, but to get to 10x, you've got to focus on what your unique ability is and delegate the rest of it. So I
That's
think
right.
that's so important. So, like I said, Frank, we're approaching time. Any final thoughts you want to leave out there?
I would just tell everybody when you're talking about calibration and you're getting more and more involved in a higher volume of these things in your shop, if you're working on late model cars, 22 and newer, which we've seen the total loss ratios go through the roof, most cars now that are getting repaired are going to be in that vintage 20 and up. Guys, there is a calibration required. I can almost guarantee you that something needs to be done to that car. It may not be a DTC telling you. There's a lot of tools out there that can help you identify those calibration requirements and when they're needed. Leverage those folks who can help you. Protect your liability as a business owner so you can still be in business tomorrow.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. So I think that's words of wisdom to leave everybody with. I thank you, Frank, again for coming back on to talk a little bit more about this because I think it's a really important topic, and I think shop owners need to understand complexity of it more and more because it is changing like that all the time. So, Frank, thanks for being on. The last thanks always goes to you, the audience. Thank you for listening to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. And if you've not subscribed to the podcast, please click the subscribe button below. That way, when a new episode comes down, it'll drop directly to your device and you can catch great guests like Frank and all the other great guests that we've had on. And if you're watching on YouTube and you like what you see, please give us a 5-star review. And if you got any comments, that's greatly appreciated because that, again, helps us to boost the amount of watchers that we can get to. So again, thank everybody. Thank you, Frank, for being on the podcast today, and take care and God bless. And we'll see all guys real soon. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
All information is obtained from sources deemed reliable but not guaranteed. No tax or legal advice is given nor intended. Content provided herein or on our website should not be construed as an offer for investment advice or for securities, insurance, or other investment products. Investments involve the risk of loss and are not guaranteed. Consult a qualified legal, tax, accounting, or financial professional before implementing any investments or strategy discussed here. HighLift Financial is a DBA for DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided through Cornerstone Planning Group, LLC, an independent advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission.